Welcome back to Ratified. Tá Tálinn go bhfuil uachtarán cumann lucha scéil na hÉireann, Jarlath Burns in our downta. Tá fáilte rót, Jarlath.
Good morning, Mark. Into jazz event on you.
Anna bha, conna satán chiad cúpla seachtain. How are the first few weeks going?
Oh, Harvey Greyhoch. Well, if you look today, for example, two things are very, very important today. First thing is I spent an hour talking to Terry Riley, who's the new hurling development chair, about how we're going to go about our business and everything else. But in the meantime, I'm getting texts on the Silver Bridge Committee WhatsApp that we have closed the fields this week and we're in a fail final on Saturday. So it's not going down well with some of the coaches. We're trying to diplomatically angle our way out of this because you know with the weather. So that's the sort of life of a GA president still involved with this club between one thing and another. The thing I'm more afraid about is the club because as you know, Mark, all politics is local.
Absolutely. I'm watching, I'm a big Man United fan and I see Jim Radcliffe has come in and he's making all these changes and we see our new president has come in and I suppose what everyone is talking about is the review committee and like the names that you have brought in. Like, I mean, these people are held in high esteem and was that something that you kind of like say, when you were running for presidency, was that something that you had decided straight away, this needs to be looked at, and had you earmarked these people to come in?
Well, the first person who I wanted was Jim Gavin, because as soon as you hear that name, you know what that guy has done. You know what his achievements have been, and I just knew that he was going to bring a rigour and a diligence that we've never seen before. I sat down with him about 4 times before he actually said that he would do it. Because I knew that he wasn't going to take it on unless he was going to give it his 100% commitment. What I've seen so far is just amazing, the amount of work that he has put in and what his expectations of the committee. There's a committee member in this room actually, and he also, the type of people who he chose. I gave him quite a lot of freedom to choose whoever he wanted to have on it.
And fair enough. So you had him as the figurehead and then...
That's correct. There's a few rules with regard to the GA. For example, there has to be a member of Ard Corlia on every committee. That's so as somebody in Ard Corlia can report back if they need to report back. And it just means that everything is joined up. The committees are linked to the GA Central Council. It wasn't always like that. But one of the meetings we had, we sat down and we said, okay, let's start thinking of this committee and who should be on it. We wanted a good breadth around the provinces, around the type of people who we were going to have on it, around people who would understand rules, and then obviously people who have played the game at the highest level, people who have managed the game at the highest level. And every one of those people brings something really, really special to that committee. And the one thing that I have said that I am not going to do, I'm not going to be going in and sitting down with that committee and saying, well, this is what I want. I would have my own ideas, and I don't want really to be influencing the committee because this is Jim Gavin's committee. This committee belongs to him and to the people who he has on the committee. So away they go with it.
I think one of the good things then, if you're thinking out loud now about leaving the gym, he has people who coach different styles of football, and that's the bit that I thought was brilliant because I might be a traditionalist and want to play one way, but Malik O'Rourke, maybe he might want to play a different way. So I thought that was really good because I'll have a reason why I think this works, but they can give a counterbalance, and I think that there's what's going to be probably the best thing that you can get a broad spectrum out of how we all can move forward as an association.
Jarlath, your piece to just to slightly go a wee bit off topic here on this one, but your journey, I suppose that's one thing I'm kind of interested in. You know, a lot of us would have went to watched you, Donegal versus Armagh, Lorden in the middle of the field. You know, we're sitting around here as 4 retired footballers here too. The journey into administration, was it always there from within you? Was it a dream to be president of the GA someday, or like, you know, how did that all come around?
I remember, playing against Donegal, it was, Anthony and Brian, you always played against, and then you went out against Derry, and it was Anthony and Brian. Brian McGilligan.
Brian McGilligan, 6'5".
That's right, it was always very difficult. But there's nothing beats playing. I played my last game for Silverbridge reserve team, I think it was when I was 51, and I actually went home that day and my wife said to me, look, knock it on the head. They're now at the stage where they're laughing at you on the field. And that was the hardest thing I had to do, was hang up the boots. But I did, and actually what happened really was that in 1999 when I finished, the GPA were starting to be created and formed, and nobody really knew what it was. And it was Sean McCaig came to my house one night and said, we're going to form a GA Players Committee, and I want you to chair it, and that gets you straight on to Central Council. I thought long and hard, because I had intended just going straight back into coaching in my own club, and like most ex-players want to do, and I decided to go that route. After 3 years, Sean Kelly came in, and Sean wanted me to stay on, but I felt it was time for somebody, for a new bit of thinking with regard to that, and maybe to start negotiating with the GPA to make them the official players' body. We had done all that we could. The people in Central Council at the time could not believe that I was voluntarily giving up my seat on Central Council, because there's a lot of very good perks that go with that, but I felt that that was the right move to get. I then became the national chairman of SCORE and Irish language. The phone didn't ring as much from the media when I was in charge of that committee. And then it just went on. I became the national 125 chair. We organised all the fireworks out here, and then I think it was the first or the second chair of the standing committee on playing rules, where we brought in the midfield mark, not the forward mark. Don't want to have that in my CV. We did think about it at the time, but we didn't. Yeah. So it has taken me various reasons. I was the Armagh Central Council delegate. I think once you get in on the way of administration in the GA and you get to understand how the whole thing works, it draws you in, and you just want to stay there. And then about 7 or 8 years ago, people started talking to me about the possibility I could go for president. And I decided, yeah, it's a road I would like to go down, specifically because there are particular ideas that I have that I know that the president can drive.
And like, didn't you go for the presidency, not get it? And then, like, how difficult was that? Not getting it, like, straight away were you deciding, okay, I didn't get it, but I'm going to go again?
Yeah, well, I was up against a good candidate. In fact, they were all really good candidates that time. And Larry McCarthy, a professor in sports marketing in New York, really, really able guy, lots of ideas himself. Larry won, I think it was after the third or the fourth county, it was nail-biting. A lot of people said that year was the most nail-biting thing that was in Croke Park that year. to date, it was only February. But I just went back. It didn't, to be honest, people couldn't believe how well I took it. But at the end of the day, there's no point in us in school, as a school principal, talking to pupils about being resilient and controlling the controllables and all of the things we talk about. If when it happens to me, I was going to go into a hole. I was actually genuinely pleased for Larry and for the association that we chose somebody from Global GA. And I think that's been a real triumph, that we now look upon ourselves as a genuinely global organisation.
Is there, and to echo what Michael has said, Jarlath, that our perception of GAA administration is, I feel, looking in, if I was involved in that, it would be an unbelievably frustrating environment to be in. Lots of differing opinions, like Aaron such, even the playing styles and things like that. There's so many from all over the country, different ways of doing things, the politics of it. And for as a player, where it's kind of black and white, I'm doing this and playing at the highest level like you did, is that, how have you managed that? Is it as frustrating as maybe we perceive from the outside to make these changes, to force through ideas that you have, or is it something that you've kind of just developed? Like you've been on lots of different committees and chairs over the years. Is it an enjoyable part of the role, or is it?
Well, the GA is a very democratic organisation. I think it was Winston Churchill said that democracy is the worst form of government, apart from all the other forms of government. We were in Pittsburgh because the GA is starting to develop a relationship with Pittsburgh Steelers in the hope that maybe the NFL play a game out here. The NFL are really expanding their base, and the Pittsburgh Steelers, because of the Dan Rooney connection, have chosen Ireland. And myself and Peter McKenna were discussing the Central Council meeting, my first meeting on Saturday, and the difficulty that was going to have trying to get across the line the fact that there was maybe 7 or 8 Leinster rugby games are going to have to take place here. The Aviva's going to close for repairs for the pitch. The RDS is closing. Lots of other events. And one of the Pittsburgh Steelers guys was listening in, and he says, what is that you're talking about? You know, Central Council meeting? And we explained the whole process of it. And I says, how does it work here? He says, well, the Rooney's own this club. They make the decisions, and we all abide by them. And that's the end. So I'm not too sure if I would like that. We had a fantastic debate. And when it came to whether or not we should make the decision on the day about these other games going into Croke Park, or whether or not we should change the rule as it exists now, where you only play a game of soccer or rugby in one of our county grounds or Croke Park, if it is of significant national importance, do away with that. I decided that we would have a vote on whether or not we should vote. Only in the GA would you have that.
Vote for vote.
And in my very first meeting, it went to 23-23, and I had to use my casting vote. So that can be challenging. Whenever you're sitting in Central Council, some incredibly able people are in the room, and you just have to have your wits about you. You have to know your stuff. But the GA is such a vast organisation with so many facets. The first thing I said at my first Central Council meeting was, I am not the smartest person in this room. I have a certain amount of knowledge, mainly around the games and around certain elements of administration. But the reason why you're in the room is because you can help me. And the things that I don't know about, you know about, and you can help me get across the line.
You were talking there about, say, the games, the Aviva closing and all of that. And when you were saying that, I was just thinking straight away about the Liam Miller game in Páirc Uí Chaoimh when Roy Keane organised it just for Liam Miller's family. Like, what's your take on that in terms of, say, when there's, as you say, significant situations where, like, I myself, first of all, put it out there, I think it's a fantastic thing. I think it's a fantastic thing that there's a facility there that they can use. You get Manchester United into playing a soccer game, the Manchester United oldies into Páirc Uí Chaoimh playing a game, you have a full house. Myself, I think that's fantastic. What's your take on that? You're on about the Pittsburgh Steelers coming here. What's your take on, say, soccer, rugby in Croke Park, in other pitches?
I think we've long since got rid of the ideology around this. Rule 42 used to be there for a particular reason. That reason has long since ceased to exist, and it's really down to the fiscal reality of the stadiums and how much it costs to build a stadium. And if you're going to build a new stadium, it has to be busy. There has to be footfall. There has to be people coming in and out to pay the bills. Otherwise, we're using money that should be used for games development and other things to keep those stadia going. And like we all know, Páirc Uí Chaoimh are working really, really hard to try and pay off that debt. Yeah. It's a fantastic stadium. And
incredible.
I would justify the existence of that stadium. Cork is Ireland's second city along with Belfast. Why would we not have a major GA stadium there? But in order to keep the doors open and the lights on, we have to accept that we're going to have other games in it, and I have no issue with that, and I would promote as much activity in a GA stadium as we possibly can.
I think it shows us in a great light whenever we do it. The Crusaders rugby team, known worldwide, and they're down playing Munster a couple of weeks ago. I was here for the famous American football game where the Mayo carry on.
We had to go down to Limerick, yeah.
But then look,
that was brilliant though.
Yeah, but look at the spectacle that come off the back of that, where everyone was complaining.
Yeah.
Croke Park was full the day before, great atmosphere. But I'd say you never played in a more intense and better atmosphere than you did in Limerick that day.
It's one of the highlights of my career. Yeah. But it's funny that you talk about that, right? If like games that people talk about, they also talk about the 1983 Cork Dublin game below Páirc Uí Chaoimh. So like, you look at the modern stadiums, like Páirc Uí Chaoimh is one of those modern stadiums, and you would certainly love to see more games played there. I was unlucky enough, I was retired, never got to play in the new Páirc Uí Chaoimh, and it's something I would love to have done. But you walk in there and you look at the Astra on the side and you look at the pitch, and it's just amazing. You were talking earlier.
I was down it last weekend. Like, it's just an amazing stadium. It's a mini version of here. Just like you said, I was standing and I was just envious that I wasn't down on the field, that you're an old retired player and you're never going to get that opportunity. But even like what you mentioned, I'd love to see, I know you have your premium tickets and a certain amount of corporate level here, but I'd love to see the likes of that an All-Ireland semi-final in Páirc Uí Chaoimh or a new Casement Park, where you're bringing teams to an audience that maybe they might never have seen before.
And I think the big thing about that game at Mayo was, if you put 40,000 in here, it's a decent crowd, but there's a lot of empty seats.
There is,
You put it into Semple Stadium or into Gaelic grounds, and it is just a sea of faces.
But players speak a lot about the National League being an incredible competition. As players, it's week on week, so you love playing games. It gets you out of harder training sessions. But you're playing games. We go down and play Kerry and Tralee, it's a full house. 12, 13,000 there. We go up and play Tyrone up in Oma. The atmosphere is incredible. We've, rightly or wrongly, played a lot of championship games with Dublin, Leinster championship games here in Croke Park, and there's 25, 30,000 people here. It's not a great spectacle. That's the and people can accuse Dublin are always playing there. We would be happy to move and play games outside in different venues because it's just better atmosphere. This place is an
Yeah, but
amazing facility.
You'd have to give
Yeah,
up your
give up your
dressing room.
dressing room.
See what I have to do with it.
Yeah.
But genuinely, that idea of moving games around, like the commercial reality, Porky needs games down there. If Casement Park is built, fingers crossed, obviously for the Euros, but then there's a lot of Ulster Championship games there. Fans love it. They love going there. Like you were there, a lot of Armagh people down. I was in Fixture Stadium a couple of weeks ago for Kerry and Tyrone in the National League. There was a massive Tyrone presence down. You make a weekend of it.
Mayo
It's
fans
just
travel well as well.
unbelievable. Fans love it. Players like it because you're getting, like Croke Park is brilliant, but 30,000 here as opposed to a full house in Fitzgerald Stadium. It's no choice at all. It's a better experience.
I have to say, I chuckled when, at the first opportunity, the other three guys just rolled out their prejudices onto the pitch.
All morning. All
dressing room
We're well able to take it, I can tell you.
And particularly, Aaron Kiernan, who whenever, Cross McGlenn used to have the county finals, they always got dressing room number one.
Exactly.
There was never a dispute over that.
Can I ask you guys a question now that I have, four eminent players here, right? So we've gone for the split season. That means, I know when I played, we used to play 3 games before Christmas, 4 games after Christmas, and then you'd have about 6 weeks before the start of the championship. And 3 games before Christmas, you did pre-season in September, a pre-season in January,
another pre-season,
and a third pre-season, and it was terrible. And I hear some people complaining about these games coming thick and fast, game. I know personally, I would love that, game. What's your thoughts on the fact that the games come thick and fast now in the National League with the split season and then into the Sam Maguire?
I overall think it's a good move. I think it's a positive move. It's in its infancy. We're in year, two of it, really. Yeah. There is a trickiness, I do believe. If we look at it, everybody loves the National League. There's a thirst, there's a hunger, there's people mad to go, teams playing at the one level. Now it feels like in Gaelic, we go into our provincials. We know how much we love Ulster and much we value the Ulster provincials. I don't know if there's maybe the same value within maybe Munster, Leinster. Maybe, excuse me if I'm maybe wrong there.
No, you're right. You're
right.
That's fair.
It feels like we're
Connacht to a degree. There's
we're raising up in the National League. It feels like the next 6 weeks we're just going to go down and then we're going to raise back up again for the Super 16s, which was great. Different home away venues, All Ireland quarterfinals, semi-finals. I do believe there needs to be maybe a tweak where we bring the provincials to the start and then we get a season that is on the rise constantly. But to go back to the number of games on that, I think we maybe take away the pre-season tournaments in terms of the McKenna Cups, the FBDs, the Burn Cups, what have you, and we've run the provincials then. They just might need another couple of weeks, maybe into the 2 weeks into August, could just give us a little bit more of a breathing space, just a small bit. The final part on it is just, excuse me, I'll stop.
You know he's on the committee, wouldn't you?
Is the found last year, it was brilliant. Game on game, week on week, different venues around the country was brilliant. It felt like coming up to the All Ireland semi-finals and finals that we would have been part of as supporters, fans, players. The build-up was over maybe a bit lacking. It was just over like that.
That's my point, Michael.
After a game, you were trying to review it and get ready for the next one.
But I think, and I totally agree with the point you're making. I would just, there's a traditionalist in me that I would love, obviously September, that's gone, we know that's gone. But I would agree with you in that I'd like to kind of extend it into August. And my thinking behind it is, you've got Champions League finals on, you've got Heineken Cup finals or whatever it's called now. You've got all these finals that we're competing with now. And I think there's less of a fuss being made of, I remember, was it the All-Ireland semi-final Kerry Dublin a few years ago? And there was there was talk, but there was talks about other competitions and other rugby and football and soccer. And I just think if we kind of push it back a bit, but I would have to agree with everything you're saying.
It wouldn't take much. It would only take those couple of weeks.
I was here with my wife at the All-Ireland hurling final last year, Limerick-Kilkenny. Brilliant game. Brilliant achievement. Limerick went 4 in a row. The following week it was Dublin-Kerry. And we know we've been involved in Dublin-Kerry games. It's a massive rivalry. The events that week were all very busy. It felt like it was over too quick. And I know we're probably biased who run it, but there's a massive interest in that. And it's probably, I think we're all in agreement. The one thing I'd say, talking to players now currently, and I know from my own experience, game on game is players love it. Because if they're not doing that, we used to play, they're training. they're being flogged. So players love that. But the one tweak I would make, I think we're in agreement, the National League is a brilliant, brilliant competition, and there was murmurs last year about it, and again this year. And there's teams talking, it's devalued.
Correct.
Because there's only, it's the league, the Provincial Championships, and the All-Ireland. This is a massive competition, and teams like, we don't want to be in the league final. And the basis is, you look at Mayo were league champions last year, and 6 days later they're out against Roscommon in the championship. That's a priority. They end up losing that game, so teams are going, well, we shouldn't have went big on the league. A 2-week gap there. Make the league, the players love it, supporters love it. You see the crowds, make that, it deserves space. And if it's just 2 weeks until you play championship.
But I do agree, but the big one is a lot of people are throwing out about the workload and it's too much for players now. But the reality was what you explained. You did 3 pre-seasons.
Oh, you're training.
That was tough going. Do you know, like nowadays, my thing is it's now a condensed season, but players are actually training more now than what you ever did. Now, I'm not saying they're training harder, but see, just picking the gear bag and going out of the house and just that meeting or that collective, it's mentally players are getting fatigued, or sitting in cars to go to do a collective gym session they can do at home. That's fatiguing. So, but managers should control of that. So it's not the 3 pre-seasons where you were flogged running around Ravensdale Forest or something out there, or, you know, it's a different type of fatigue that there is. I obviously got involved in the Club Players Association because if you're putting a club player's hat on, I felt the seasons were just way too long whenever you were trying to play a club and county. It was a 15-month season. Like, that was tough going too. And I do now understand that I don't think it's ever possible to bring it actually into a calendar year. I think it's still going to be that it'll run into January. And I would genuinely give it February again if it has to be, to get that 2 extra weeks that takes you into August, that gives you the 2-week break from an All-Ireland hurling final to build up to an All-Ireland football final. If nothing else, just for your supporters and...
Well, there is a way of achieving that. Going right back to September with the 2 finals. The difficulty with it is, it's the people who are going to have to compromise are the counties with their own championships.
Correct.
And the difficulty is that I think we sort of missed the point as to what the problem was. The problem is that if you're organising the Premier League fixtures, very simple. All you have to look out for is UEFA and FIFA fixtures. But if you're organising the GA Master Fixtures Plan, you have to bump into 32 fixture-making bodies, the higher education, and multiply all that by 2 because you have hurling and football. And then within that, you have maybe 7 or 8 different iterations of championships. So, for example, we have groups of 4. Nobody can explain how you do it in Kerry. It's easier to learn Chinese. In your county, it's
league format.
League format now. I think in Tyrone, it's straight knockout. In Wexford, I think you play 6 games. It is totally ridiculous to think that we could organise a master fixtures plan around that. So what my thinking on this is that, let's say if we went back to the old way, where we have the All-Ireland finals back whenever they were. And what you say is that there's the master fixtures plan. This will work if every county operates its league and championship on this format. So let's say if you say groups of 8, and then it becomes groups of 4, top, bottom for the championship, more or less the way Armagh do it, and the way most counties do it. Now, we're not saying you have to do it that way, but if you don't do it this way, you do so at your own risk. And I think that would be a good compromise to say to counties, we can work the master fixture schedule in and around this iteration of club organisation. And if you do it this way, there's where you play all your games. There's when you'll have your county players. There's when you'll have your preparation. Build it all in. But if you want to continue with the old way that you had, don't come running to us. And one of the things that you didn't mention is, and you might think that this is a small thing, but it's not really. In the middle of July, it's impossible for counties, let's say if Kerry come up here, to get a hotel accommodation in Dublin to come up and watch the All-Ireland final. Even for counties who are staying there, I know the Kerry group look after all of Kerry's expenses. They're very lucky that they have them to do so, but it's virtually impossible for counties outside of Ulster to get accommodation the weekend of the All-Ireland final in the last week of July. So all of these things, it's not perfect. It's working at the moment at a particular level. Club players love it, but let's not tie ourselves to that. If we're going to innovate, let's think of where we can innovate.
Well, I think the big issue at the time, and I know from being in the meetings, was the dual counties. It was trying to get a dual county to finish their club season. Like, if I remember correctly, Wexford has the most dual clubs in the country. So it might be okay for us in Armagh. We have 40 odd clubs at football and whatever it is, 8 or 9 at club level. Their championship runs off quicker, where you just have so many dual players. And again, that's another strand. Once you get the club level of trying to run club championship fixtures, where you have teams, you pick your Slot Neils or your Lockmore and Tipperary, where you've nearly the 2 teams are the same in football and hurling. So it's.
And Aaron, you're right. Sorry to interrupt you on that, because we cannot look at those genuine dual counties as inconveniences, but the aspiration to which we should all be trying to aspire. That, if I even moved for 1 second towards moving from the current situation, I would have Kevin O'Donovan from Cork on to me straight away, Tracy Kennedy, all of these people saying, please do not move by even 5 days, because we can just about get our championships in the space that's there. So, it's not easy to come up with a master fixture schedule.
I was part of that. I'm old enough to be part of what you were saying, playing the National League football and the few games before
you that
Christmas.
Before Christmas,
getting that age now, all right.
Jesus.
But
Did you play against Jarlath?
I don't think I played against Jarlath, no.
He's not that old.
No.
I'll say it rather than you saying it.
But I do agree with you in the sense that, like, say, if all the counties were to do it in such a way, like we have a situation now where you've backdoor if you lose, then you have another backdoor if and I mean, like, when we played
Many chances
county
you want.
exactly when we played county championship football, it was championship. What was championship? Championship was knockout, and that was the beauty about it. And it's just, I think that part of it is gone, and that you're going to get it. And you're talking about the Kerry County Championship. Last year there was games that they say that the divisional teams, there was dead rubber games at the end of that where they didn't even field a team. So I mean, there's areas, and you're talking about the review committee we're talking about the review committee you set up. There's a review committee within the Kerry County Board to try and tidy ourselves up, because it's far from the finished article.
I think the positive thing is, and you touched on it, Michael, it's only its second iteration of this split season. So there's a will to innovate and try and change this. I would have said for years the GAA would have been too traditionalist. We're not changing anything, and suck it up and get on with it. And that's not going to improve anything. So at least the split season, and you said it as well, Jarlath, it suits club players. Club players, which is 97% of the playing pool, their schedule is dictated by the counties. And I know in Dublin, if Dublin will play 1 game in the club championship in April, and then the club players don't know when the next game is, it's when Dublin are finished in the All-Ireland. And they're sitting around, can we go on holidays? Do we train? We're talking about sports science, training load. We don't know when we're going to play. If Dublin were beaten, we'll play next week. And club players were so frustrated about they were being messed around with their own schedules. So at least the split season is stage 1 of, and this is quite rare in lots of organisations, the players have actually been listened to. And there's the challenges of the shorter intercounty season, there's commercial issues because we're not promoting the games enough. And lots of organisations, FIFA, UEFA and these places, the players are the last thing they're thinking about. How much more money can we make? So stage 1 is, let's try and give a clear structure. The intercounty players love it, and there's loads of games. Okay, just maybe small tweaks. Club players now know when we're playing. We have a window here to do it. Is it perfect? But it's not, but it's a lot better. And there's a willingness in the last couple of years to improve. Can it be better? There's a will to do that.
That is such a good point, though, in that everyone gives out to the GAA and it's all about grab all and all. But they've listened to the players in this, of course they're losing out. You're losing out in revenue, you're losing out in sponsorship. But to me, I do agree there will be slight changes that will keep coming over years till there'll maybe never be the perfect balance. But I do think what is there is working to a certain degree, and I do see there being small changes over next year.
Well,
Well,
it's
for Irish, we
the
don't
only
like
problem,
change.
there's always going to be problems, but the only problem, and I see it, and I have my Kerry hat on when I'm looking at the 2 Cliffords, and we saw the run that they had in the All-Ireland Club final with Fossa. But I suppose from a club point of view, if you're a successful inter-county player and club player, so you're finishing with Kerry, you have a year, and then you're going on with your club, and you're going on for the full
had it with
6
Glen
months,
this year,
and then
the
you're
lads'
going
Glen.
on inter-county then again, and you finish there. So you're effectively going for 2 years, and I suppose that's tough. It's up to the inter-county manager then to intervene there and give the break.
Yeah. And I think following on from that, I think it's something I might have heard you speaking about, Jarlath, a number of times, that we've been there on it, the demands on these inter-county footballers at the moment, and it's not forgetting the club footballers, the demands for them is increasing also too, but the inter-county footballers, if we look at, you know, they're amateur, they're trying to live life, they're trying to do a bit of travel, trying to get education, they're trying to get jobs, further themselves outside of the football environment, but the time and the requirements needed now at the moment that seems to be out there is growing, it's continuing to grow. Your thoughts on that and the future of that and sustainability of that and ways of managing that, have you?
Well, I have very, very strong thoughts on it. It is unsustainable from so many perspectives. The cost of it, 40 million last year we spent, and that's what we know of, because we know then there's the black economy. That could go up to 50, maybe 55 million, there's people think, we spent on preparing our county teams. And at the end of the day, there's only so many teams can win, and the 2 big cups down there, Sam Maguire and Liam McCarthy, will only ever be won by 2 teams. So the difficulty is that we have an amateur status, but the players are professional, and the players are professional in every perspective apart from the fact that they're not getting paid. And yesterday I had a very long meeting with Alan Clark from Stat Sports, and he has all the data because so many players are using the GPS. He said that our players are training harder and are fitter than the Premier League players. But it's not always smart training that they're doing. So the Amateur Status Committee, there's 3 big committees which I have formed over and above the normal committees that are in Croke Park. Obviously we've spoken about the first and the Football Review Committee. This is the Amateur Status Committee, where we are going to have to re-establish what does it mean to be an amateur player in this year, 2024, and how many demands can we make of our county players before it becomes intolerable. And I have really, really radical ideas for that as to size of panels, amount of training sessions, how we insist that counties maintain a line within the amateur status.
How's that done?
But I'm going to go back to Pittsburgh Steelers. So when after the Super Bowl is over, there is a closed season. Now that is run by the Players Union. They insist that that happens, and that no team is allowed to train. There's a number of ways in which to do that. All of the GPS systems are licensed in that country, which means that the NFL can tell if any team is training by the fact that the GPS systems will all be together at one time. The second thing is that in Pittsburgh Steelers, there's a camera on their training ground that goes back to head office in NFL, and if there's one player out on that, the club could lose its license to perform. That's how serious it is. Now, I know when I went around counties last year and I suggested I was putting a camera on centres of excellence, so people laughed at me and said, "Go and catch a grip." That's how stark it has to be. If you look at, for example, Everton lost, I think it was 10 points last year because they went over the financial fair play, sustainability. Chelsea would probably part company with their manager only to know that the payout has contract and get a new manager in, that it would put them above the threshold of, and that's in the Premier League. Look at them. So we have this unlicensed amateur status in our game where everybody wants to improve, and we're all doing so, and it's with more training sessions, with more intense training, longer training sessions, more money being spent. But all we're doing is that everybody is moving up, and the players are the people losing out. And the last people we blame for this is the managers. The managers are doing what they are being told to do by the supporters, which is get out there and win a match, win. For example, in my own county, you know, we're got to the league final this year, but everyone in Armagh expects us to win the Ulster, and if we don't, that won't be a successful year. So Kieran McGeeney has to do whatever it's going to take to win the Ulster. So I don't blame Kieran for that. Don't blame the Armagh County Board, because they have to then, if they're going to appoint him, they have to spend the money that it's going to take to get us there. So there's this arms race going on, and there's nobody in control of it. But it has to come tumbling down, and we have to slim it right back down. And it comes down to licensing the counties. and making counties before you can compete that they have to apply for a licence to compete, as happens in other sports.
Is that achievable, do you think?
Well, I'm going to tell you this. I speak to county chairs all the time, and they are crying out for this because the amount of money it's taking to run.
It's such a massive challenge, though, isn't it? 'Cause we had training bans come in before. You're not allowed to train in this window. You're not allowed to train before Christmas. And teams, and you touched on it.
Dubs were training during COVID.
Yeah, and look, but they shouldn't have been, and that's the reality of it. But teams, we've all been in that environment. You're doing anything to get an edge, and that's ultimately you've said it, Jarlath. It's the players. If you ask the players, they'll we want to do it because this is going to give us that 0.5% chance of winning the All Ireland. And sometimes they need to be saved from themselves at times.
Players do need to be saved from themselves. Without
I know it's easy for us because we're all washed up now.
Yeah.
But when you were playing and you're told this is going to help you win the All Ireland if you do train at 6 o'clock in the morning, go to work, come back and
tell you to do to get on the team.
So
but you know the thing about that is
enforceable.
You're 100% right, Paddy, and it's a point that you made about travel to training and the lifting the bag and going out and the tyranny of travel. Now go back to Pittsburgh Steelers. When we asked them, because there was such a Mahler to Swinshue exchange of ideas between us, because I asked them, what is the longest distance any player has to travel to training Pittsburgh Steelers? I think it was 15-20 minutes. So Tom Parsons was there. Tom says, for me, it was at times 3 hours going from Dublin to Charlestown. You know, for people in Donegal, it can be a lot if you're in Dublin. And for me, I'm not saying that players shouldn't train, but train up until Christmas in your own club with your GPS system on it. So whenever you come to January, you are at a certain stage of what we would call cardiovascular readiness to train. Now, I know in our own club, during our close season, our players asked us to have the lights on between 7 and 8, Tuesday and Thursday, every week in the winter time. We did that. Players come down to their own training. That's good, that's healthy, they want to train. It's the tyranny of travel, getting into your car, having to drive for an hour, train, back, work the next morning.
And the final piece, I suppose, in that one is the licensing piece. Definitely, I think we're in general agreement here. The sustainability of players continually putting that, you mentioned, taking the bag, putting it in the car is there. But we also can't lose sight as these players do need support. As regards, they need top quality advice, coaching, training from the best strength and conditioners, from the best. And I know that list is ever growing. And that does need to be looked at, but we need to get to the stage that the elite rooms are getting the same level of strength and conditioning as what Kerry and Derry and Dublin are doing. And if we're bringing in licensing 100% to make sure that people aren't, we need to make sure that teams are also getting it.
That's a great point. That if say for instance, if you use elite room, the population just cannot generate the same money that potentially they can here in Dublin. But we're all in this together as a GA organisation. Help them up, give them players the same opportunity to perform and develop as you do in other counties to make it a level playing field. And just one other one, we were talking about training or travel, and it was one thing that I found in GA, Joel Stelwood, he was a Geelong midfielder in the AFL there, and I'm reading his book at the moment, and I couldn't believe this. His last year, they got to the grand final, and Geelong give the players the option of go in and stay in a hotel in Melbourne the night before an All Ireland or the grand final, or just meet you at the ground. And half the team stayed at home in their own beds, and he went in and stayed in a hotel in Melbourne and travelled out and just met 2 hours before the game. We're I know ourselves, I can always remember if we were going away for the weekend, we left at 8 o'clock in the morning and we had an extra meeting after training, the last training session of Thursday, and then we met up and there was a wee chat before we went. And then we went away and there was another meeting that night, and you get up the next morning, you did breakfast and you had a meeting. You know, I think we don't.
It says we are professional. You know, we are in an amateur status. We are professional.
But I think if you have the players during the week and you coach them well enough and explain everything well enough, I think sometimes we overtalk it and overthink it. Then, where I just found it made me more anxious. I just wanted to go and play. I didn't want to talk about it. I just wanted to play.
But the challenge is, we're seeing this. We're getting the feedback off the players. Younger players are walking away from panels and not just you might say, in the weaker counties where you feel, oh, well, we're not going to chance it and we're going to go to the States, and we're just not going to do this anymore. We had it in a very successful team, Rory O'Carroll, Paul Mannion, Jack McCaffrey. These are all-star players.
Pascal went
Pascal, and it's
Connolly.
like, Dermot, I just need a break from this. These are Dublin, a well looked after county, competing to win All Ireland. It is heavy, heavy going, and players are giving the GAA the feedback in all counties. We're seeing guys, I'm not playing this year. I can't do that. And they're 25, 26.
You're 100% right. The ESRI reports are constantly telling us that. And this isn't about, and this is a big mistake a lot of players make. They'll say, well, I can come home from work on a Friday at 5 o'clock, 5:30, have a bite to eat, go to training, and then when I come home I can do a bit more work. It's not about time, it's about what we call spare capacity. And we are eating and eating and eating into the spare capacity of individual players. That's the difficulty, and players are having to make all sorts of decisions around their employment and even, girlfriends and all of that, that the people who are really suffering very often are the wives and girlfriends of these players. So again, I'm going to ask you now a question. As players who have played the game at the highest level, would you welcome a new amateur status report that stated that every county has to apply for a licence? It's all to do with governance, the amount you spend, the number of your panel, the number of training sessions you have, that you're going to adhere faithfully and honestly and diligently to the close season, and that you will not put a player out when the close season is on. That doesn't mean to say your players can't train on their own, in their own pitch. And that if you break it, you're breaking one of our 6 values and you lose your licence to compete.
Absolutely, I think.
Now, is that something that...
Well, you're simply not breaking that. If
But-
that's the reality.
Well, I think, first of all, I agree. I think, but in order for things like that to happen, you're playing, and it's something that I've constantly been talking about, is the pre-season competitions. Your McGrath Cups, your O'Byrne Cups, your FBDs, your McKenna Cups. Okay, fair enough, you mentioned that there was 20,000 at a McKenna Cup, right?
In 2006.
Yeah, but my feeling on all of this is you have a condensed season. Michael, you mentioned there about having the provincials first. I think, what you're saying is achievable, but I think something has to give. We have to maybe forego these pre-season competitions in order to achieve that, because I'm a traditionalist. I love the Munster Championship, the Ulster, particularly the Ulster Championship. When it comes to the Ulster Championship, for me, all bets are off in terms of who's going to win it. Anybody can win it in a given year, but that in me, I don't want to see those provincial championships go. I'd like to see them because, of course, it's Kerry and Munster at the moment, and it has been for the last few years. It's Dublin who are in Leinster. But look at what Westmeath did in 2004, the joy they gave the county. Look what Leitrim did back in '94, Clare in '92, Tipperary a few years ago in the Munster Championship. I think that, it's if you do what you're saying, I think you're creating more of a level playing field.
And there is the big one. I've been in agreement with it, Jarlath. I think it'd be a really good idea in terms of the licensing piece. Not to inhibit or to stop or to, the negative words, or to, to ensure they're not training, but to actually bring things up to a standard. Am I right in saying? So that we see more of the
uniformity
the
across
Leitrim,
the
so
team,
that the Donegal players are getting the exact same level of supports as the Dublin players. There's a thought around that the Dublins, the Kerrys have the huge big, finances to employ as many different full-time, part-time, whatever amounts of people to ensure that all other counties come up to the level.
Talking about standards, right, and trying to improve the game and the amateur game, and trying to, I was just thinking there, I remember watching a documentary after we lost the All-Ireland to the Dubs in 2015. I can't exactly remember.
The referee one?
Yeah. So it was David Coldrick, and basically David Coldrick was mic'd up before the game. Now, the big controversy regarding the whole thing was the players didn't know. Okay, but no, it was. But in fairness to David Coldrick, when he was out on the field refereeing the game, he was very articulate in the way he was talking to the players.
Yeah, he's great.
I've played in the full back line my whole career, and I suppose if there's something which I feel the GA can improve on, is you have a referee there, and he's very dogmatic. Free in. He's not telling the player why the free is in. Frustration builds up in the player. You're liable to get a yellow card or even more. When you have that situation where the referee's mic'd up. Now, obviously, you can't do it in all games. You can do it in the televised games. When a referee is mic'd up, I thought on that day, Coldrick was very articulate. He was telling the players, this is a free because of this.
But Mark, he was always like that. It wasn't just for that game.
I know,
that was his style.
Oh yeah,
which
and I agree with
players
you. But my
enjoyed
point,
that.
Paddy, is there are referees there who
I know.
wouldn't be as articulate as that. So my point is, and you look at the rugby, you look at the respect that the referees have for the players have for the referees. The players won't, they're not going to test the boundaries of the referee. And the people at home sitting down who can't go to those games, they can hear this communication going on between the ref and between the players. And as a result, it's more of an entertaining spectacle.
Mark, I have a major issue with this, and I'm delighted you're here, Jarlath. Just your own thoughts on this. That stems from a complete and utter lack of respect for the GAA's disciplinary process. And we'll see it if any player gets a red card, the first reaction of that county, the county board, the management, appeal this, we'll get off here. And we'll drag it out and we'll go through 20 different committees, and sure enough, an hour before throw-in, this guy is going to get off. And it's every county is guilty of it.
Dublin in particular are big.
Again, that's fine. No,
Roll out the prejudice there, boys. Get them all
but
out.
it is. And if
See what you're thinking.
Jim McConnelly got off the night before.
but a lack of
The
respect
morning of.
for
Paddy's
refs.
not standing up for that.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah,
it
yeah.
comes from that, and it's so bloody annoying. We had an incident a couple of weeks ago, Roscommon and Kerry, and just the reaction, the first protocol from GAA teams is, how do we get this guy off? And it devalues the whole thing, and we're going to see it this summer. It has to be addressed.
But Paddy, my
That's
question,
stage one of it.
My question, Jarlath, would be, is that something that you would, say, entertain, possibly the thought of a referee being mic'd up for a game and that would go live to the TVs?
Of course, that's all the innovation that we're talking about now. I actually thought that was really, really good. David Coldrick is an actuarist. He's one of the most intelligent people you will ever meet in the world.
He's a
He's
smart
such
man,
an incredibly bright guy. And I think that worked really well. And the second part of that was, if you remember, Maurice Deegan last year helped out the BBC with their coverage. He was able to explain some of the more obscure rules or things that...
That was excellent.
Yeah, I thought that
excellent.
programme actually won the
Royal
award
Television
for the best
Society,
sports
yeah.
programme. Paddy,
Hello, Murph.
coming to your point about the culture of appeal, the DRA, the Dispute Resolution Authority, was set up 20 years ago. I mean, I was on it for right until I became the president-elect, and I saw everything. It was set up initially for about 10 cases a year that would normally maybe go to the High Court before you would get relief. It has solved that. Last year there were 40 cases. There's a massive backlog. There are cases going to the DRA that should never be going anywhere near the DRA. And one of the difficulties is that, let's say if I hit you and you go down, and the referee puts it down as whatever, there will be somebody in the county who will be able to find a rule, maybe that there's a loophole in. And a few years ago, Brian Rennick, who was the chair of the Hearings Committee, tried to bring a motion to Congress that if a county brings a spurious, loopholey, waste of time or club hearing, that you can actually double the penalty. Now, it didn't get through, but it's something that I would like to explore as well. And just the final part on that is this. I know that when I go to Armagh executive meetings or Armagh County Board meetings, our referees coordinator is Henry McCloy. He's a brilliant guy, and he will always say, look, the number of instances of referee abuse in this county has now spiralled, and it's a disgrace. Young people shouting and
Kids
effing
matches,
referees off.
Jarlath.
It's excellent. And on the line as well,
Underage
parents.
matches.
Now, one of the things, if you look at the world in which I operate, it's all about evidence-based decision-making. It has to be evidence-based decision-making. One of the ideas that I would like to have, and I'm already in the early stages of this, is for the referee's report. So that the referee's report at the end of every match, he will have an index, 1 to 5 being 1 really well behaved, 5 being virtually taken away in the boot of a car, okay?
Yeah.
And the same, I jest on that obviously, same at the opposition. And at the end of every month, if they do that on a Jot form or in a Microsoft form, because I'm trying to change the way in which we do referees reports as well, from paper, because as a club secretary, sometimes trying to work out what referees are saying when you're at hearings, it can be very, very hard. That at the end of every month then, Henry can say, Silverbridge this month was the worst club in Armagh.
Sorry,
Therefore,
is that just an Armagh thing? Because I seen a referee's report this year from, it was an underage game, player got sent off, but I seen the rating at the bottom of it. So is that happening in every county, or?
No, at the moment it's still paper. Kildare is the only county that has moved to what we call a jot form, where referees do it online and they send it in, and it's been revolutionary, I have to say, in that county. We're trying to bring it in, but here's what would happen. If I am going home to my county, my club, and saying, guess what, last month we were the worst club in Armagh for discipline. We all have to play, our grounds are closed for the next month, and the best club will get an award. Suddenly, it's our club's problem. We have a problem in our club, whereas at the moment, people get very excited, people get very annoyed, and there's no consequences, and then somebody will get you off. So again, a change of culture required there.
But you spoke about initially with the licensing piece, that to manage training load and sustainability on that, and my initial thing, I'm sceptical of that because teams will try and work a way around it, but then we talk about, well, if you break that, you are not playing in the championship this year. It's a draconian penalty. The same with disciplinary issues. Your club ground is closed for all your teams. If your senior team is an issue, well, your under 10 team is going to take the brunt of that as well. They may seem like extreme measures and penalties, but that is, in my view, the only way to change behaviours. Rules and severe penalties, and if there's an issue, and in theory this sounds brilliant, and I like it. There's going to be pushback, the practicalities of it. This comes in, and Kerry are training in December, and in January they've broken the rules, and Kerry are not allowed to play. Just an example, in that year, Sam Maguire, the reaction, it needs strength to
Wouldn't
courage.
be stark as that though. There would be like the GA every year gives out. I know you're going to be. This is a mind-boggling sum that we never tell. For some reason, we keep this a secret. Last year, the GA paid back 75 million. That's what we do. We give money back. 75 million. 83 cent in every euro that's earned goes back into the county. So grab all. Not too sure of that. 75 million. Every county gets so much of that. Okay. If you said you're going to lose 50,000 for that because you've broken a value, the GAA. That very quickly focuses mind. But see, just on that, right? The GAA's values, right? And remember, GAA holds a mirror up to Irish society. It is the most authentic organisation in Irish society at the moment. So our 6 values represent the best parts of Irish society. But there are parts where we are good and parts where we're bad. There's parts of Irish society where we're very, very good, and there's parts where we're not so bad. If you look at the 6 values, community, we're brilliant at that. Amateur status, not as good. The third one, respect, disaster, right? We know that. And that's some inclusion, very, very good. Player welfare, yeah, we have a bit to go on it. And the 6th one is teamwork and volunteerism, probably the best thing we do, volunteerism. It's that respect thing that we have to change the culture in. And remember, if the GAA holds a mirror up to Irish society, we are not perfect. There are good parts, there are bad parts. And we also reflect back the bad parts of Irish society, which is begrudgery and lack of respect to referees and all of those things. And the only way you change that is to change the culture of the association.
I played a wee bit of junior club rugby.
A rugby question to
at
finish.
Dundalk. But see the difference in how I see playing for their seconds team.
Yeah, it's called.
There's the respect that they have for the referee and how they speak to him. And it was just whenever you were saying about the referee mic'd up, like I can always remember Pat McInerney. I was having a tough time in a game with Owen Bradley one time, struggling on him and swinging out of him and giving away a free and turning around and shouting at Pat like foul language that you shouldn't have been shouting. And I remember he just looked at me and he goes, "Are you telling me that wasn't a free?" And I goes, 100% Pat. And they're just
I've a good story on it. I'll tell you, Pat, that day in 09 that I was
marking the
gooch. Right? And it was coming down this side of the pitch. We were about 15 points down at this time. I wasn't the full 17. And Gooch was after scoring about 110 off me. And I was on a yellow card from about 2 minutes into the match. And I literally, Gooch had skimmed me again. I tried to like stone cold stunner him over the sideline. And Pat McInerney came over and he's given a free. And I'm head and hands. And he's like, "Paddy, one more of them and you're off." And I was like, "Pat, I take it now if you get it."
I
just started laughing and I jogged on.
This is maybe an apocryphal story of the fantastic, great Francie. That there was one day that he was playing a match for me, maybe it was Armagh or Cross, I'm not too sure, and that whichever player it was passed the ball and Francie came in like the next day with the tackle and put him down, and Pat McNeely over and said, Francie were very, very late to that tackle, and Francie says, "Look, I just got over as quick as a cut."
That was in an Armagh game. That was an Armagh game that Francie got there, but that's what made Francie such an icon, wasn't it? The wee one-liners.
Jarlath, you're weak, like, it's president of the GA. Like, is there like an office, a big office that you
Well,
go
there's
into?
a very fancy office downstairs,
there?
Shomer Davin for the president. Yeah.
Did I hear
Dublin
that
dressing
you I listened to some, I think it was with Marty, do you pass your former school?
I do.
And you get on the train,
I do.
and then you get off the train, get on the bike, cycle to Croke Park. Is that
That's
is
right.
that your...
That's exactly what I did today.
See, I love that old school way.
The
Well,
bleeper
that's-
bikes. That's right. I drive an electric car. We all have to try and do our own wee thing. And I love the bleeper bikes. You walk and you can see where it is, and then you scan to unlock, and you come over on the bike here. And I'm going back on the train today as well.
Well, Gennady Gaelic, Tassul, had Dúchlan more roads, Amach, let she be in Achnil Farnis Far, Satir, not Hunan Jabi, and of Gennady Gaelic.
Got a kid made a market work.